Snafud is a podcast that contains adult themes and language. Listener discretion is advised.
Hey guys, welcome to Snafud, where the situation's normal, all fucked up. This is the podcast where we tell you stories of true crime, true mystery, and the truly fucked up shit that happens every single day that we just forget about. So we decided we wanted to remind you. I'm Shannon.
And I'm Corey. Welcome back, everyone, and thanks for giving us a listen today. We're excited to be back this week with some new stories. If you want to follow along, we're using our website to put up a blog, so we're going to have some notes and pictures that are going to go with this week's topic on there.
Yeah, or you could always just check us out on Instagram and Twitter, and we have a bunch of pictures there as well. And that's at Snafud Podcast anywhere you search.
And that's probably the easiest place to get the link for our website as opposed to us shouting words at you.
So, like Corey said, this week we have a topic we both are pretty excited about, so I think we should just go ahead and dive into it.
That's right. This week we're going to be talking all about Snafud tourist attractions. Now, Shannon and I really love to travel, so this is an easy topic for us, but it's also very hard at the same time because there's so many places that we would love to be traveling to and talking about.
Yeah, exactly. I feel like this might be a recurring topic for us, so that's pretty much fine by me. Yeah, let's face facts. I think a lot of people actually like to travel, not just us. And definitely now that tourism is an expanding industry, you could pretty much find just about any tour in any city that's really going to fit your taste. For instance, maybe you want to walk in the footsteps of a serial killer.
There's definitely a tour for that. Off the top of my head, there's the Cream City Cannibal Tour. That's up in Milwaukee, and you can follow Jeffrey Dahmer's steps.
Yeah, how about eating people?
Yeah.
Nom, 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 nom,
or if you want to go see Ted Cruz's dad, you can go see the Zodiac Killer Tour in San Francisco.
Maybe, I don't know, have you ever wanted to do a more unique bar crawl? Are you tired of hanging out with all the 20-somethings? What about, like, a bar crawl where you search for ghosts?
Then we definitely have tours for that. We did one in St. Augustine, and I think New Orleans, I know Key West both have tours like that.
Yeah, I think the last time we were in Key West, we actually just happened to see one walking around the city, and those ones are fun because you go to like a couple different bars, get to have a drink, which is way more fun than just standing outside of a sidewalk all the time. And then they have one of those like little EMS, little white blinky readers.
Yeah. And, you know, those things, I don't know how they work, so...
It's called putting magnets in a freaking bar room, and when you walk in, they, like, set them off.
Yeah, and you're drunk, so it makes it so much easier to get the people to look at it.
Or maybe the thing is if you're drunk, your walls are down, and you'll see ghosts better.
Maybe. I haven't put too much thought into it.
I don't know. Whatever. All I know is that's definitely an option. Or if you're really one of those spooky motherfuckers at heart, how about you do a night in a former murder house?
Weird enough, that's actually a thing. The Lizzie Borden house is actually a bed and breakfast, and you can sleep in the room where the stepmother was found.
We have to do the Lizzie Borden story.
No.
I didn't say we had to stay there.
No, not the house.
I don't think I want to stay there.
No.
Yeah, I mean, that's freaking weird, but yeah, it's available.
Yeah, really, there's no end of places that you can visit. They're going to cater to their own local fucked up stories. The true crime and paranormal phase.
Mom, this is not a phase. This is me now.
We've heard that before.
This is me now.
But, you know, whatever it is, it's here right now and it's making some big money out there. And just like any trending movement, you start seeing a lot of the same things pop up. Similar stories. They are going to keep popping up all over the place, you know.
Just like podcasts.
Yeah, just like podcasts.
Yeah, it's okay, though. We don't mind the hard and tried and true.
Yeah, and there's nothing really wrong with a tried and true experience. Because obviously if you go and you're going to do a true crime tour of, say, London, you're going to follow in the footsteps of Jack the Ripper.
Yeah, I mean, wouldn't you be disappointed if you didn't?
Yeah, you know, and eventually that's kind of what everyone wants to do. They want to see the main ones, but then they're going to want to get off the beaten path.
And sometimes that can actually be pretty hard to do, I think. It's really easy to fall into the same things over and over again. It's really hard to find the actual haunting. Like we said, maybe you're going on these bar crawls, but you never see a ghost, do you? I mean, the people who believe in ghosts and the paranormal, we definitely think certain buildings are haunted. They're just difficult to find. So how do you find those things? I mean, in order to do that, you're really going to have to do a little digging. So I guess the best thing you could do is start by checking up on the local history. Right away, you're going to find every disaster, murder, and awful thing that's ever happened.
And if you do any research on a place, you're going to see those right away.
Yeah, or, I mean, like everyone else, check your travel sites. Like, don't just check the travel sites, read the comments. Because, like, people come, the tourists will leave their little notes, and you'll find the things that are worth doing and what's not worth doing. But I guess sometimes if you want to find the unexpected, like, the things that are harder to figure out, go, like, a different route. Like, for instance, I really love using the Atlas Obscura. I mean, at least, like, I'll open up a page, find the city I'm in, like, right there is the first weird
Yeah, you always have
thing.
that open. Or, if you're really, really brave and you don't mind becoming probably our next feature story, you could ask a local in your next town you're in. You never know who's going to take you on a private ghost tour of their city or their favorite bar that's definitely haunted.
Yeah, or you're going to get murdered. Okay. But I guess in the end, if you really just want to have the best experience finding creepy, scary places, maybe just listen to us.
Yeah, although you might be biting off a little bit more than you can chew with today's episode. Because we're going to go to 2 really different spots today that are really weird. I'm going to be telling you guys about the world's most haunted castle, and Shannon's going to be telling you guys about how you can get a picture standing next to a serial killer.
Yep. It's going to get really dark really, really fast.
Yeah, so here's your kind of like last warning before diving in, guys.
Yeah, screw it. Let's go.
Alright, so this week we're going to jump across the pond and take you guys over to Ireland. And if you guys have ever been happening to travel through County Offaly, you could be lucky enough to visit what some people call the world's most haunted castle.
Ooh.
So this castle is Leap Castle, but it's spelled like leap. It's existed for quite a while. Some are saying all the way back to 1250 of the current era. And throughout its long existence...
Is that even like a thing? Do buildings last that long?
Over there they do.
Not here.
No, not here, but it's because we haven't been around for that long.
Oh, well.
Around here it's been like 300 years, 400 years. I can do math. Don't tell me I can't. But throughout Leap Castle's long existence, there's rarely a point where it hasn't had some kind of violence happening there. The area is originally inhabited by the O'Bannon clan.
Okay. The who?
The O'Bannon clan.
Oh my god. You know what?
What?
I just figured out what my last name needs to be.
Oh, God, no.
Shannon O'Bannon.
Fee-fi O'Fannon.
Oh, is that how that goes? No, never mind.
That's definitely how it goes when you make those rhymes. You never did that as a kid?
Yeah, I just didn't put the two together as quickly as you did.
Oh, well, if you're looking at it, it's easy. The O'Bannons are the ones who started construction of this castle that they would have called Liam Eor Bianan, or Leap of the O'Bannons. As legend goes, before the castle was even built, the 2 sons of the O'Bannon chief were constantly arguing over who would inherit their father's power and wealth.
Isn't it always like the firstborn?
Typically speaking, but maybe in a clan you don't have that sort of Game of Thrones style hierarchy.
Okay.
Or maybe they're twins, who knows. In order to finally resolve their problem, though, the 2 men decided on a competition. So this is going to be fun.
Who can drink the most beer?
I wish it was that simple. No. What they're going to do is go to the future site of this castle, go find the largest rock that they could, and both jump off of it together.
So the third brother got it.
Basically is what it was going to seem like, but whoever survived that got to control the clan and gets to build the castle. And it's kind of most likely where it got its name from, because the O'Bannons are taking a leap. And now we're going to call the castle after that.
Leap of the O'Bannons! Got it.
And, we don't really know who won, but before the first stone was ever laid, there was already blood on the ground of the site. So it kind of started in a shitty way. The trick is the O'Bannons didn't even get to keep the castle. You see, a lot of clans have a very distinct hierarchy in which your clan could be a subset of a larger clan who's actually in power. And the O'Bannons, they were secondary chieftains to the O'Carroll clan who took over the castle. So, the O'Carrolls would own basically a county region, and each smaller family would own like a township area. But because they're in that county area, they have to answer to the chief of that county.
Yeah, okay.
That
sucks that they literally died over this thing and they didn't even get to keep it.
Yeah, and they either took it over or they kind of built the castle. Because we're talking really far back in time right now, 1200s.
Especially for Americans, it's basically didn't exist.
Right. And, records back then aren't necessarily always the best. But officially we know that the O'Carrolls did control the castle in 1400s. And it's being led by John O'Carroll at this time. But he died in the castle from what records say was the Bloody Flux and a Pox.
Oh, gross.
Yeah.
It's not even, like, the Bloody Pox. It's, like, a Bloody Flux and a Pox. Like, that's gross.
But compared to the rest of the people that die in this castle, it's not all that bloody.
Just a little bit. Just a little sputum right there.
Yeah, just a little bit. So his son, Mulroney, he actually ruled the castle and this whole area for about 42 years, and was known for his bravery and valor. However, Mulroney's son, O'Carroll, he was not at all like his father, and we're not going to call him Feargan.
What are we going to call him?
We're going to call him Fergie.
Okay.
Because
my humps, my lovely
I'm sure
Irish
he'd love
humps.
to hear that, yeah. But let's just say, in a time where hospitality, really stood for your name, Feargan.
I thought we were calling him Fergie.
Yeah, but I like saying Feargan.
All right, listen, we're over it.
He would actually be probably called an asshole.
Oh.
Just to put it lightly. Legend has it that he murdered one of his dinner guests at the dinner table while his stewards killed the servant in the guard room. So it's probably no surprise that, our guy Fergie here only managed to rule for about 9 years before he was murdered, unexpectedly by the O'Mullays in 1541.
Well, if you're kind of a shitty person, I guess you can expect that.
Yeah. I say it's unexpected death because...
Oh, never mind. I guess it was unexpected.
Old Fergie here, he didn't leave a successor, which essentially creates a large power vacuum that left the family continuously killing each other over power for the next few decades.
Well, that seems dumb.
Right. Fergie, though, he did have 3 important sons. First, we've got William, then we've got Thaddeus, and then we've got Teague the One-Eyed. So he's probably a pirate. William here was supposedly weak-minded, which some people would claim ran through the family like a curse.
Yeah, weak-minded is a really easy way to be like, he's not real smart, real fast.
Yeah, he ain't got the brights there right now. And he was considered not a viable leader. Thaddeus, he happened to become a priest, and was considered to be too kind to be a strong leader. Or, as it turns out, Thaddeus actually had dealings with the nearby English lords, and as a result of this, it put Teague and Thaddeus at odds. And the fact that he was a priest and wasn't supposed to father children,
yeah.
Either way, Teague the One-Eyed became the guy who took charge here, even though he's the youngest of these 3 important siblings.
Mm-hmm.
Because records aren't necessarily going to keep everyone's name, especially if there's bastard children around, so...
Yeah, screw those guys.
Yeah, or women, because why not?
Same.
Yeah. Teague was known to rule without mercy. He had intentions to broaden his borders, and he made deals with nearby lords, and he murdered and killed anyone who got into his way.
I mean, what else are you supposed to do?
Yeah, and the person who kept getting into his way the most was actually his brother Thaddeus.
Uh-oh.
Thaddeus, like we were saying, he was making deals with the nearby English, but he was actually making deals in the opposing clan known as the Fitzgeralds. Eventually, Teague decided he had enough of his brother's deception, and it was time for Thaddeus to go. And we're going to go into a little quick legend here, because as the story goes, there's 2 ways that this could have happened. In every story, Thaddeus is in the Lep Castle's chapel, doing his godly duties, when Teague decides to slip in. One story goes that Father Thaddeus is in the chapel, on his knees in prayer. His younger brother Teague slips in, and he sneaks up behind Thaddeus, and in one fell swipe, he splits his brother's throat.
Oh, man.
The other story, which I like so much better, is Father Thaddeus is actually in the chapel holding Mass. However, Thaddeus had begun holding Mass before the leader Teague arrives, and this is just unacceptable to Teague.
Well, he's the owner of the damn castle. You don't start anything without him.
Right, and he comes into the chapel with his sword in hand and manages to shove his sword through his brother's back and out his chest for the whole shocked congregation to witness.
You got red on you.
God damn it. Either way, Father Thaddeus is out of the picture, and Teague felt free to rule the way he wanted. Teague continued to aim to expand his lands and was often at war. At some point, he actually made a pretty wise decision and hires another clan named the O'Mans to send out 40 men to train his own people in a new type of warfare tactics that the O'Mans were very, very good at. And after it went well, the training worked, and the O'Carrolls had successfully raided another group using this tactic. And with the raid having gone so well, Teague invited the men to come back to the castle for a feast and celebration.
Huh?
Food and wine were passed around heavily, but only once it was a little too late did the O'Mans realize that they'd all been drugged.
Oh, no.
You see, Teague had no intention of paying anyone for knowledge, especially knowledge that he now had.
Yeah, I mean, what you gonna do, take it back?
So, nope, no you can't. So Teague takes all the drugged men and he drags them to the castle chapel for their final moments. This seems like it could be a great thing because they could be receiving last rites. No, that's not at all how Teague works. He brought them here because he had an oubliette installed in the chapel. And now an oubliette is a fancy French word for to forget.
Is that where I can throw all my exes?
Basically, yeah. It's a giant murder shaft. And this one runs all the way down from the chapel to the bottom of the castle. And if that wasn't bad enough, Teague actually had metal spikes installed along the sides of the shaft, just for good measure in case the giant fall to concrete didn't kill them. They're going to get shredded by spikes.
Yeah, if I'm going to forget about you, I don't want to hear you in there.
Yeah, nope. And I
feel like a jerk.
According to an author named Bob Curran, those of the Oman clan who were still conscious begged to be thrown down headfirst in hopes to break their necks instead of, having a long, excruciating death by spike.
Ugh. Can you imagine asking that? Like, hey, can you please kill me terribly?
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of how it has to be sometimes when it gets to be this level. After the Omans are all thrown down, though, the oubliette was made to forget, and it was later bricked up and completely forgotten about until renovations hundreds of years later on the castle. So those bodies are just kind of thrown in there, covered over, and left. But this wasn't Teague's only murder hole. He'd built a large network of dungeons underneath the castle where he imprisoned people and had their cells boarded up. He kind of just liked to make people vanish.
Yeah, he has a big thing about digging holes and then covering them back up with people in them.
Yep. And you think that murdering kin and clans and the Irish people in general would make people want to murder this guy? But it seems that the real tipping point was in 1552 when Teague tried to make amends with the English.
Oh, no, he didn't.
Oh, yes, he did. He even got a night ship out of it.
Of course he did.
And it seems that this was too much, and Teague's older brother, William, the one we were kind of saying before, was
simple one.
The simple boy, yeah. He's probably a great farmer. He made a deal with an enemy of Teague's named Cahir to assassinate the ruler. And sometime during the next year, Cahir snuck into the castle through a tunnel and killed Teague while he dozed by the fireplace.
He had, the most easiest death out of all these guys.
Of all these guys, yeah. And remember, all these deaths that Teague has caused, he'd only been ruling for about 9 years.
Oh my god.
Cahir was then killed by Teague's brother, William, in retaliation for killing his brother, and William then became chieftain. So, hiring this guy to kill his brother, and then, let's catch him before he gets out of there.
Yeah, I'm sure he didn't tell anybody that he hired him.
We don't know anyone that's killing our chieftain here.
Can't have that.
A little over, and this is just the start of a cycle of a revolving door of death and new chieftains. A little over 30 years later, William gets the axe from another relative, this time with the O'Connor name. That meant William's son John took over.
Okay.
Unfortunately, the following year, John was killed by his cousin Mulroney, who is Teague the One-Eyed Son. Mulroney was then killed by John's younger brother Charles in 1586.
Oh my god, you're not kidding that this is just one after another. So
it starts with brothers killing each other, and then you got cousins killing each other because they killed their brother. It's a great family right here.
Oh, okay.
Charles was murdered in 1600 because he just sucked as a leader. Evidently, he was just as murder happy as all his relatives before him, and he had managed to have over 140 of his own men killed.
Why would he even do that?
It said that he kind of lost faith in his men and decided that instead of paying them for their services, he would just have them murdered as they slept.
Oh, so he's exactly like his uncle.
He's just, what's it called? Thrifty. That's all. He's just thrifty.
That's like saying being thrifty is going to a thrift store, then killing the entire staff and walking out with whatever you want. That's
I'm pretty sure that's how it works. I'm pretty sure that's how this guy ruled. And after all this infighting in the castle, it actually ended up in the hands of the English by 1649, given to a man named Jonathan Darby, who's a loyal soldier. Now, if you're romantic, you can believe the story that he was some poor English soldier who's held by the cruel O'Carrolls in the dungeon of the castle. But one of the O'Carroll's princesses fell in love hopelessly with him and kept him alive by sneaking him food and everything. And at one point the two decide to run away for their lives, but during the miraculous escape, they get caught up in the stairs, and they're crossing paths with one of the princess's brothers, and a daring duel ensues. And unfortunately, the O'Carroll brother was slain, leaving the princess as the rightful heir, and together her and Darby would rule the castle forever and ever.
And ever and ever and ever.
That's the Disney ending here, guys.
I like it.
Yeah, so we can keep it like that, or do you want to hear how it might really have happened?
I guess. I don't think you're gonna not tell me.
Yeah, I'm not gonna. Oh, actually, I'm not gonna. Darby was actually an English soldier who's provided the house in replacement for pay, but he still managed to marry one of the O'Carroll women.
I kind of have to wonder how much fucking back pay that is.
Yeah, I really want to know because...
Shit, dude, it's been 9 years. Fuck it, here's a castle.
Yeah, let's just run from here. Darby, he's actually not as... I mean, he's still as shitty as the rest of the people in this castle because I'm pretty sure Lep Castle is just cursed. Darby would become known as a wild captain, and he was known for having a terrible temper. And, for terrible temper, what I want to let you guys know is he just abused everyone he could. From his wives to his servants, basically anyone that was below him in the hierarchy.
Which is basically everybody.
Yeah, that's what happens when you own
owner of a castle.
Yeah. The only thing the wild captain liked more than abusing people was his money. And one of the rumors most told about Captain Darby was that he had this huge fortune that constantly worried him. In order to keep his money safe, he had 2 servants transport it to a secret room in the castle. And then the servants were killed and bricked up along with all the money there.
This really is something that, gets in these guys' heads. We're just gonna keep putting people in the walls.
We just keep putting people in the walls, and they can't tell our secrets. And it's so much easier that way. But the crazy thing is, this one actually might have some basis in reality, because when the castle goes through renovations years later, there's actually one wall that's knocked away, and 2 bodies are found behind it.
Oh my god, so, it's real.
Yeah,
which
most
means...
of these things, there's gotta be some treasure in there somewhere.
Yeah! Oh, that's fucking cool.
But it turns out that the captain would actually become embroiled in rumors that he was aiding in a plot to assassinate King Charles II, and he was imprisoned in Dublin for a number of years. And when he's finally released, many said the captain had been driven crazy. Despite being returned to his castle, he couldn't recall where he had hidden all his fortune, and to this day it could still be hidden in the walls of Lep Castle, just waiting for someone to knock down the right wall. And I'm picturing a bunch of gold and crowns and jewels and scepters to come out of it.
Bones and teeth.
Yeah, and bones and dead people too. But I'm focusing on the shiny goldness. Lep Castle would actually remain with the Darby family for generations, hitting a rare moment of quiet. The last Darbys to hold the castle were actually Jonathan and Mildred Darby, who lived in the castle in the 1900s. Mildred happened to be an occult fan and held many seances within the castle.
Okay, so me in a past life.
Yeah, basically. Ouija boards and probably trying to just call people in. Hey, you want to hang out, ghost person?
Little smudge sticks here.
Yeah, simple. She also happened to be a gothic novelist and wrote many stories about the ghosts that claimed to be haunting the castle. Mildred let her friends visit, and she let them write about their ghost experiences in the castle as well.
Okay, that's actually pretty interesting, though, because it's one thing to, say, oh, I believe this, and I write about this, and it's another thing to invite people to see it for themselves, and they start writing stories. Yeah, they could be making it up, but, I mean, honestly, if you were excited to see something and then didn't, wouldn't you just be pissy?
Exactly. And, by the mid-19-teens, because that's just fun to say, the Darbys were expanding the castle with extensions. Because how else are you going to expand the castle if not with extensions?
Yeah, you don't want a little castle.
No, not at all. But to afford this, they raised their tenants' rents and sold off a lot of the castle's lands. But let's just say that this brought a lot of unrest into the area, unrest that was combined with the Irish Civil War of 1922. And that's why in July of 1922, a large section of Lep Castle was actually burned down. So the story goes that on July 20th, at about 2:20 in the morning, there was a knock on the castle door. That evening, the only people that were within the castle were its caretaker, his wife, and their baby. The caretaker answered the knock by sticking his head out the window and asking the knockers what they wanted. It turns out that they...
I wouldn't even open the window. I would be behind the curtains turning the lights out.
Shouting at them, yeah.
No shouting. Nobody's here. Nobody.
The thing is, he kind of knew what was going on because, like I said, it's the Civil War, and there's 10 people outside, and while they're saying they want to spend the night in the castle, they really want to burn it down to the ground.
Oh.
So the caretaker speaks to them, and, he's actually held at gunpoint. So that's why he's trying to make it as easy as he can to get him and his family out. And the raiders actually gave him 20 minutes to get out of the castle while they went inside and doused everything from room to room in petrol. The men actually kept the small family hostage on the lawn from about 2:40 in the morning till 5 a.m. as the castle burned down. After the fire was out, it was noted that the main section of the castle remained intact, and the caretaker moved his family to the estate's gate lodge, but the following morning at about 4:20 a.m., they were awoken by another knock. Once again, men accosted the gatekeeper, this time asking for paraffin oil. And he said that he actually had none, and the men eventually left.
I mean, why are you going to literally give them the lighter fluid?
Right.
Seriously.
I don't actually have that here. We're in the small house. Sorry, go find it somewhere else.
My bad, go to the corner store.
And when the caretaker managed to arrive at the castle later that day, he discovered that the southern section of the castle, which had been previously damaged by fire, was actually now currently on fire. Yeah, so this fire actually attracted a lot of the neighbors who kind of came in to watch the spectacle here. And he's rushing around trying to put the fire out, and no one's helping him because they're all just kind of being vultures here. If we watch this castle burn, I'm sure there's something to steal in there.
Yeah, and here's the guy that just raised my rent. Like, you know what? Good.
Yeah, I probably wouldn't help my landlord if they raised my rents either. Eventually, the castle would fall into disrepair and would eventually be sold off. In 1974, it was bought and went through an extensive repair to try to rebuild it. It eventually came to be sold to musician Sean Ryan in 1991, who you can still find living there today.
Really?
Yeah. In fact, he actually has a great website dedicated to his home, and we'll link that on our blog for everyone. And to top it off, it seems like every review on the travel website talks about how friendly and welcoming Sean and his wife are, and how excited they are to share the haunted stories that plague this castle.
Ooh, what does that mean, Corey?
It means we're up to the ghost story portion of our tale. We promised a haunted castle, and I told its bloody history.
Super fucking bloody.
So, of course there's going to be ghosts, and we've got a ton of them here.
All right, let's do it. This is my favorite part, so I'm super excited.
So, because of the story I've been telling you so far, I think it's only smart to start at the chapel. And it's referred to as a bloody chapel, and its most famous specter is the priest. And it would seem that the ghost of Father Thaddeus is famous for wandering the chapel, but he's also known to appear in the stairway below it, and sometimes he even leaves the chapel through the western door and goes down the northern staircase. Also in the chapel is that terrible murder hole, the oubliette.
Yeah, the murder shaft we talked about.
Yep. So the oubliette had actually been forgotten in time thanks to it being boarded up, like we said before. However, it was rediscovered during the Derby renovations, and it said that it took 3 cartloads to remove all the skeletons found within. So that's a lot of bodies.
That's a ton of people.
Yeah.
Which totally goes to, yeah, he definitely took out this big gang of people that he was using as warriors and just, dumped them.
I don't necessarily know how many bodies could fit in 3 carts, but I'm saying 40 is probably a good estimate, depending on the size of the cart. And since the rediscovery, paranormal investigators say that it has caused an emotional shockwave that has awakened more spirits than the castle has ever known. And, this is very, very important because it's going to cause one spirit that we're going to kind of get into in a little bit to show up. And that one's a very intense spirit for those of you who kind of know what you're talking about with ghosts. I decide not to ghost hunt because I don't want to die, and I don't have a Ghostbuster uniform. Also on the property is the priest's house, which I guess is where I'd assume the priest would be.
Yeah, right?
He's in the chapel, so...
Well, then he died in the chapel.
Yeah. And since the fire of 1922, it's been mostly left as a shell of a building, and people can't stay in there anymore. But remember that I told you the last Darbys to live there, Mildred Darby was really into the occult, and she wrote accounts of the ghosts at Lep Castle. This is what she had to say at the time about the priest's house. And this is what she had to say at the time about the priest's house. Quote, "There is something heavy that lies on people's beds and snores, and they feel the weight of a great body pressing against them in the room of the priest's house."
Is that like me as a ghost? Like, I don't even want to haunt your ass. I just want to sleep on your nice,
sleeping.
comfy bed.
Maybe. Another ghost sighting goes, quote, a burly man in rough clothes, like a peasant, always pushes a heavy barrel up the back stairs of the wing near the servants' bedrooms. When at the top, the barrel rolls down and disappears.
Oh my
and
god,
everything
that freaking
disappears.
sucks.
So his afterlife is pushing a barrel up that's gonna fall back downstairs.
It's a pure Sisyphus. I don't know. Like, I think that one goes in line with what sometimes people say, okay, there's either ghosts and it's like a person's spirit left behind, and maybe they're like a conscious spirit, and then sometimes people think that a haunting is more like a period, like a little blip in time that somehow you're watching, maybe something super emotionally charged, which in all honesty, this was probably this guy's worst fucking day.
Oh yeah, that's what I'm picturing. I have to bring this barrel all the way upstairs and fuck, it rolled down. Another one of her quotes is that a monk with tonsure and cowl walks in at one window and out another.
So a super old ghost.
Yeah.
Because what is that? A tonsure and cowl is him in the brown robes, and he's got that weird bowl cut, but the opposite.
Yeah, I think so. And that's kind of how I'm picturing it, the brown robes, the hood, the little rope belt, and he's walking in a window and out another. And since there are no rooms left today, the remaining spirits are actually said to be shadowy forms that are seen wandering an empty husk of a building. So they don't really have a pathway they're going through. It's just an empty shell of a building, but back when that ghost was not a ghost, there was a hallway there, or a bedroom, or a doorway.
What if they're just disappearing because people aren't giving them, like, the energy to exist anymore?
I mean, that could be true, too. Or the fact that they're... For me, I think it's more that the location that they're in, ghosts will be ghosts, even if you're not there. We just know they're there because people see it.
You know, it went from being, like, these really clear ghosts to now you're just saying there's nothing but, like, shadowy forms.
Yeah, I mean, it could just be that the building's in disrepair. Maybe you're right. I don't know ghost science.
Okay. Yeah, where's your degree, sir?
Yeah, where's your degree in ghost science? Another haunted space in the castle is called the Murder Hole Room. Or sometimes to put it a little bit more Disney, we're going to call it the Muckle Hole Room.
Okay, sure.
Because that's not murder. At the moment, we don't know where this room would have been located, but Mildred also wrote of this room and her experience in it, and many assume it was the bedroom placed somewhere below the oubliette.
Okay.
So that might not have gone all the way to the base of the castle, and there might be a bedroom underneath there, and I can only imagine sleeping when you're tossing people down that hole. According to Mildred, this room had been converted into a bedroom, one that she even spent the night in and had a ghostly experience in. Mildred claims she was in this room laying in bed one night when she decides to call her terrier Nell. So Mildred brings her hand out of the bed and she's snapping it, and when suddenly something takes a hold of her hand. She says she feels another hand holding hers, and it's soft and cool.
No.
And just seconds later, lets go.
Oh.
At the same time the hand lets go, Mildred says she heard a heavy sliding fall, like a large body had fallen at the foot of the bed.
Shouldn't have let go of that hand.
Yep. Terrified, she's sitting up in silence, to which she starts hearing a deep human groan and a person saying prayers.
Oh my
And
god.
that's it.
That's super... I wouldn't... No.
No, I'm wondering if maybe when you hit the bottom of the oubliette, you're able to say prayers still, but that's kind of where I'm going with that one.
I don't think so.
It actually seems like a lot of people had complained to Mildred after they stayed in the room, and she eventually says that they stopped putting guests in there altogether.
Oh, really?
Yeah, let's not put them there. She also complained about a stain on the floor that would never leave. She claims that she even had them planed off the board several times, so they're kind of removing that top layer for it. But every time, this stain kind of creeps back after a few hours.
Yeah, that's called water damage. Sorry, Mildred.
It could be called ghost damage. I'm calling it ghost damage.
Ectoplasm damage.
Yeah, there's such good ectoplasm here. Then in the blue room, which had been the nursery.
These are a lot of ghosts.
Like I said, it's a bloody castle. We didn't even get to necessarily all the murders that were happening in it. We just kind of followed the storyline of the owner's family. So you can only imagine what kind of infidelity happened in this castle and other people that are living in it killing each other. This blue room was actually the nursery. And you can find the Red Lady here.
Okay.
So, the Red Lady in the blue room. She is seen as a full apparition. She's a tall woman clothed in a red silk dress, and sometimes she's seen carrying a dagger. And she holds it up like she's ready to stab somebody.
Okay, she's a crazy bitch.
Yeah, I don't want to see her.
And she hangs out in the nursery.
Yeah, her legend is that she was kidnapped by the O'Carrolls and kept a prisoner. She was raped and eventually gave birth to a baby. But the story goes that the O'Carrolls could not, or more likely would not, take care of the baby, and they killed it. Distraught, the Red Lady used the same blade that killed the baby to take her own life.
Oh, no.
And you'll know that she's in the room with you because the temperature drastically falls. And according to Mildred, she likes to stay in the nursery and cry at the foot of the beds where the kids sleep.
Oh my god.
And
I would
just
torture a
that,
child
no
like
matter
that.
how many times I've looked at it, I'm just getting chills because I don't want to see a ghost hanging out with kids.
Just like crying over their bed.
Yeah, no,
Oh
that's
my
not a good way to wake
God.
up. Another spirit that roams the castle is called the Governess. She's tall and wears Victorian clothing and can be seen walking diagonally across the main hall. Or she can be found near the children ghosts that haunt the castle.
Because of course there are.
Because of course there's children ghosts. I'm not going to this castle. Of the children, there's Emily and Charlotte. Both look like they're from about the 1600s. Emily's about 11 years old, and she died actually from falling off the castle's southeastern battlement. Guests have seen this little girl falling from the castle roof, only to disappear just before she hits the ground.
That would scare me so bad. Could you imagine, like, just standing on the lawn and thinking you saw a kid fall off a castle rooftop and then, like...
And then you run over there and there's no kid?
Yeah.
Yeah, no. That's the least thing I want to do today. Charlotte has actually been seen walking through the castle, and it's been noted that she has a deformed leg that she drags along beside her while she walks, or behind her while she walks. And just to round everything out, there's also a ghost of an old man who has been seen often sitting by the fire in the main hall.
You think maybe it's Teague?
I'm thinking it's Teague. I was just going to say, like, that's probably Teague because he died dozing off by the fire. He's a small old man with a green coat, knee breeches, bright shoe buckles, and he holds a leather bag in his hand.
Wow, that's pretty, like, descriptive.
Yeah, all these ghosts are supercharged, apparently, in this castle. And evidently, he tries to stop people from doing their activities while you're wandering around. He'll, like, shout at you.
So he's just an annoying old man.
He's just a heckling old man, yeah. Get off my lawn, kids. Get out of my castle. Sometimes he's seen with an old woman with skinny hands who wears an old-fashioned dress and a big headdress.
Okay.
And sometimes both the old people are seen with another old man who looks like a priest. So it could be Teague, and it could be Thaddeus, and Thaddeus could be popping up in different spots of the castle.
No, this doesn't sound like them. I think, like, maybe this was just a random old man and some old woman, and he, like, was used to hang out by the fire. Maybe
and
he
then
got
the
last
priest?
rites or something.
Maybe.
Well, because I think they would be able to tell the difference. Like, they said an old priest. They never said, like, Thaddeus was old.
Yeah, that's true.
I don't know. Whatever.
I'm just going priest, and then we have Thaddeus, so to me, they're all going to be... all the priests are going to be Thaddeus.
It's Ireland. Isn't that, like, half the population?
I think so, yeah.
Okay.
Every Irish person I've met is always a priest. And now we're going to get to the strangest and scariest of the ghosts in the castle. This one's called the Elemental, and it only appears at times that it is being actively provoked, like at Mildred Darby seances.
Oh, or like what you said, like, when they opened up the oubliette.
Yeah, it's just kind of... it pops up at different spots. It's seen in various forms. Sometimes it's a shadow. Sometimes it's full apparition. So it seems like however much you piss it off is what you're going to get when it shows up. It's the size of a small adult. It is a cadaverous human in shape. Yeah, right? Yeah, no. It appears gray and deathly thin, with big black holes where the eyes and nose should be, which is, again, a no from me.
So it's not even like a person. It's like literally
it's
a
like the
rotting...
Grudge. It turns and there's no eyes.
Ah!
Its lips hang loose, and it slobbers with thick saliva dripping from its jaw. It is covered in gray hair on the head and arms, and its hands are claw-like. And
dude, that's super creepy.
yeah, I don't want to meet anything that's like a crab person, or some sort of deformed thing. This is our episodes bleeding over to each other, because he might have been a sideshow freak. No matter how the elemental appears, though, it is always followed by a powerful decaying smell. The elemental is a difficult specter to explain, unlike the other ghosts that people have been able to put names to. Instead, this rotting ghost has quite a few origin stories in this castle. The first and most fantastic legend is that the elemental spirit was put into the land by druids who had a sacred ritual rite on the exact same spot where the castle is built. So
because, of course, where else do you build a castle but on top of everybody's, like, religious site?
Yeah, I mean, it's the same thing that happens over in the U.S. when you build a hotel on a Native American burial ground.
And then you wonder why, like, the elevator opens up and
there's
floods
blood
the hallway.
Out. Yeah. But here, it's a druid site, and it means the site was cursed before the first O'Bannons took their leap of faith to see who's going to run the castle. Which is kind of terrifying to me, but it kind of gives another extra reason why this place is fucked up. The weirdest legend actually revolves around the elemental, that it was put there by another angry clan.
Okay, sure. Okay.
Evidently, the Earl of Kildare, who's named Gerald Fitzgerald, because Irish people are great at names. I would never name my kid Gerald Fitzgerald. It's like John Johnson or Jack Jackson. He was a renowned magic user, and because he tried to take over the castle so many times, it seemed like he had a hang-up on it. So it's rumored that this mighty wizard placed the elemental in the castle in order to burn it down from the inside. I'm sure he said it like that.
Oh my god.
Because I'm picturing a guy with now fire hair and red eyes just being super pissed off about the O'Carroll Castle.
I'm picturing a homeless man yelling at the sky.
Yeah, I think you've been to New York City too many times. But from here, the list kind of goes on and on about the elemental's beginnings. It could be the original O'Carroll owner who died of a bloody flux and pox. It could be a restless soul from the oubliette, or one of hundreds of the fighting men who aided the O'Carrolls only to die over money, and who's in charge now.
Either way, it's like a rotting dead carcass, and that's so gross.
Anyway, it's not a fun place to be. In the end, there's no way to say, and according to the current owner, Sean Ryan, it doesn't seem to wish to come out unless it's actively harassed and provoked. So, our advice, if you go to the Lep Castle, don't do that.
Yeah, maybe don't do that.
Let the elemental ghost go play with the other ghosts that are children falling off and people crying at
if
kids'
you guys
beds.
go there, do not bring your Ouija board.
Don't bring your Ouija board and try to piss off the elemental.
And if you smell something really bad, run.
Yeah, that's probably a good time to leave. But that's kind of everything I've gotten chased down on the most haunted castle that you could possibly visit right now.
Oh my god, that was cool. You ready to go?
Yeah, let's see what you got.
No, I meant you want to go there.
No, there's children ghosts and an elemental who might be a firebug.
Oh my goodness. I think I'll risk it. I think I will take the trip.
All right, you have fun with that. I'm going to stay here and just watch.
Yeah, so just a quick warning before I get into my side of the story, since I always happen to be the much darker one.
Yeah, you do.
This story is going to get really graphic, and it also involves the death of some kids. But that's my last warning, so suck it. I'm going to be telling you guys exactly what we promised. I'm going to tell you where you can go get your picture taken with a serial killer.
Is it like a kissing booth type of situation?
Maybe. So it's actually pretty simple, really. You only have to travel to the southernmost city in the world, just above Antarctica.
Oh, that's okay. Great, guys. Let's go.
Yeah, you just take a bus, car, or train from Ushuaia in Argentina, and you can take a tour of the Museo Maritimo y del Presidio.
Oh.
Yeah, I do Spanish good.
Yeah.
Or rather, you can just call it what it used to be called. And it used to be called the prison at the end of the world.
Oh, that's a pretty good place to put a prison, I think.
Yeah, so the prison was only used for 46 years before being turned into a maritime base. But while it was in use, it was known for housing the most deranged and deadly criminals that Argentina had to offer.
All right.
One of the most famous inmates to be housed there would be considered Argentina's first serial killer, and his name is Cayetano Santos Godino.
Does he have a nickname or anything?
He sure does. He's actually more popularly known as the Big-Eared Dwarf.
Oh, people are very politically correct back then.
All right, and if you're saying, okay, Shannon, I know my serial killers, and I don't know this guy, well, go ahead and sit tight, because I'm about to tell you one of the most fucked up stories we've ever told on this podcast.
Was he a dwarf that was traded by the Spanish, and then he got his revenge?
No. So, Cayetano was born in Buenos Aires on October 31st, 1896, to his immigrant parents, Fiore Godino and Lucia Rufo.
All right.
And his family was really, really poor, and basically they were already extended to their limits. They actually had 7 boys.
Jeez.
And just to make matters worse, Fiore, he's actually an abusive alcoholic. And he happened to have syphilis before he even, happened to have Cayetano.
That's a great way to have children, then.
Yeah. So it's actually suspected that the syphilis severely damaged Cayetano. And he was born really frail and sickly. And in fact, he almost died about several times before he even turned the age of 5 because he was suffering from enteritis.
All right.
Which is the inflammation of the small intestine.
No, that's gross.
Yep. So Cayetano was just, from the very beginning, he was noticeably different. He was very small for even a small child. Mm-hmm. And due to his short stature and then his slack jaw, he had a wide-eyed expression, and then he had these giant Dumbo ears sticking out the sides of his head. Yeah, he really didn't have it too easy, and his nickname actually came from his neighbors. And they like to call him the Petiso or Orejudo, or the Big-Eared Dwarf.
All right.
So, right away from childhood, they're just like, hey, you Big-Eared Dwarf, what you doing?
Doesn't stand a chance.
So, Cayetano started attending school at the age of 5, like most kids his age. But he was rapidly transferred from one school after another because of his behavior issues. He just was super violent, and he literally just showed zero interest in learning. The teachers had such a hard time dealing with him that literally he had to switch schools several times. So, in the end, like we said, he has very little interest in school. He basically just starts skipping it most of the time and spends more time hanging around the tenement neighborhood of Almagro or Parque Patricios. He's just hanging out at home.
So are these near any town that anyone would recognize if they don't know Argentina?
Yeah, I literally just said at the beginning that he was born in Buenos Aires. Yeah, I literally just said he was born in Buenos Aires. These are just neighborhoods, like neighborhoods you can go to right now that he lived in. So, as a kid, Cayetano, he starts to exhibit 2 of the 3 parts of the McDonald triad. And this
I don't know what that is.
Well, it's actually, it's one of those older theories and how to, like, decide if, by a set of personality factors, whether or not a person, you know, might end up being later on showing violent tendencies or could be in relation to later serial offenses. Like, it's just a way to see, like, certain behaviors in a kid to see, like, whether or not they're gonna turn out bad, basically. Okay. And a lot of people actually argue against the McDonald triad, like, today, but I think it has a valid point. And so there's 3 behaviors that you could show in a McDonald triad, hence triangle. And those are cruelty to animals, obsession with fire setting, and persistent bedwetting past a certain age.
So he's beating up animals and setting stuff on fire. Are those the 2 he's got?
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, actually, I can't believe you guessed that. That's exactly what he does. Like I said, the triad doesn't have to have all 3, but if you show at least 2 of them, then you very well might be a future serial killer. And Cayetano definitely had a fascination with animal cruelty, particularly with kittens.
Aww.
And he had a fascination with setting fires. So Cayetano goes on to commit his first violent crime on a human being, and he does this when he's only 7 years old.
Jeez.
So on September 28th, 1904, Cayetano is hanging outside in his neighborhood when he sees a 2-year-old all by himself. And Cayetano kind of goes up to him. Again, he's only 7, and he's already of short stature, so he gets along with younger kids really well. And he convinces this kid that, like, let's go play. We're going to go play together. And they walk away from the houses. But instead of playing, Cayetano just decides to beat him up and then throws him into a ditch full of thorns.
Oh, okay.
Luckily enough, a police officer just happened to be patrolling the area, comes upon the boys after Cayetano's tossed this kid into a ditch, and the cop just decides to take both kids back to the police station where their mothers could pick them up.
Yeah.
Which they did only a few hours later. I guess, you know, you come across children squabbling and don't know what they're doing, you're just gonna gather them up.
If you can't tell what house they came from.
Yeah, and also, why is your 2-year-old wandering around by itself?
I was just going to ask that, too, because...
But, I don't know. I have no idea. So, you know, he does that when he's 7, and then a whole year goes by, and then he attacks again. So this time, he sees an 18-month-old, Anna Neary, and he takes the opportunity, yet again, for lack of supervision, and he decides to beat her up with a rock.
Who is leaving these kids unsupervised?
He's freaking psycho. So once again, luckily, another policeman comes by, catches him in the act, and he stops him and just only takes Cayetano to the jail. And, you know, what are you going to do? He's freaking 8 years old.
Yeah.
So he leaves the same night because he's only 8 years old. And again, like, yeah, he's violent, but he's 8. So what do you do? So over the next 2 years, Cayetano spent his time running around the neighborhood, just starting his own little child gang. And he's just hanging out with his friend Alfred Tercy, and they're just skipping school and committing petty crimes. You know, probably stealing candy from the shop, like breaking windows, just being little assholes. And, like, basically everyone in the neighborhood hates this kid. It's not until 1906, at the age of 9, that Cayetano decides that he's going to attack again. So once more, he finds another unattended 18-month-old girl. Right? Like, why are you leaving your babies outside?
I'm never going to Argentina.
But this time, he's getting a little wiser. He's a little older, a little wiser, and he knows that he can't just get away with beating kids up in front of houses. So he takes the little girl off to a vacant lot on Rio de Janeiro Street, and he beats her. He tries to strangle her, but he's unsuccessful, and he ends up burying her alive and just kind of covers her in her self-made grave with a bunch of debris and, like, empty cans. Like, he just hides what he's done.
All right.
And at the time, he doesn't tell anyone about this, and nobody finds her. It's only later in his life that he actually confesses to this crime, but by the time he actually confesses to it, it's not a vacant lot anymore. They've actually built a building on top of it, and there's like literally no way to corroborate his story. Like, that's it.
That's terrifying.
So, maybe it's possible that his parents may have suspected him. Like, he's already kind of an asshole. It's not like he hasn't beat up children before, taken children away. So it's around this time that Cayetano's behavior, it just begins to overwhelm his parents. Like, they literally just can't deal with him anymore. And they actually end up turning him into the police station themselves.
All right, that's good parenting.
I didn't know this was like a thing you could do, but there's two stories that go hand in hand with this to explain why they would even take him to the police station themselves. So the first one is that his mom turns him in because he's turned into a compulsive masturbator, and she literally just cannot stand this. It's disgusting, and she's not having it. The second story, and the more reliable of the two, is that Cayetano's father brought him to the police because he found a shit ton of dead birds.
That one I'm willing to believe.
Are you?
I mean, I'm willing to believe both of them because he's a little freak, but...
Well, okay, so the dad, he ends up searching Cayetano's room. I don't know why. Probably because he freaking smells something.
Yeah.
And what he ends up finding are lots and lots of dead birds. He finds one in the boy's shoes. He finds them under the bed. The kid even kept them, like, in a shoebox. Like, there's just tons of them. And it doesn't matter. Either way, like, his parents are done. They're just frustrated, and they can't deal with him anymore. So they hand him over to the police. And in fact, I actually found the minutes kept by the police at the time. And this is kind of what the paperwork said, although I like, shortened it, like, a bit. So on the 5th of April, 1906, a person appeared before the undersigned commissioner of investigations called Fiore Godino, domiciled in the street 24 de Novembre 623. I don't know if it's still there or not, but that's where he lived.
Yeah.
And he immediately said that he had a son named Cayetano, 9 years old and 5 months, which is absolutely rebellious to parental repression, resulting in annoying all neighbors, throwing rubble or injuring them, wanting to correct it in some way, resort to this police to confine him where he sees fit and for as long as he wants. So back in the day, if your kid was a little shit, you could just leave him at the police station and be like, I'll come back when I feel like it.
That's, terrifying for a child.
Yeah, right? And how long do you think you'll drop a kid off at jail for?
I don't know. Most parents, I feel like they do it for like 2 hours because most kids would be in tears.
Right? They left him there for the next 2 months.
Oh.
A 9-year-old got to stay in a grown-ass prison jail for 2 months.
Yeah, I did not expect it to be that long.
Yeah, so I think it'll be no surprise to anyone when I say that when he actually gets released, he comes home and he's changed. He's been hanging around with lowlifes and drunks and, criminals in a jail, and he's angry. And he's more violent than he's ever been before.
Yeah.
So at this point, he just drops out of school completely. And his abuse on the neighborhood children, it just quickly escalates. So on September 9th, 1908, he decides to attack another 2-year-old named Severino Callo. And again, this time he leads the small boy away, and they go over to a nearby winery.
All right.
And so Cayetano grabs the boy and he tries to drown him in a horse trough by pushing him in and then just covering it with a large board. So like he has nowhere to go and he'll just die. But fortunately, yet again, in the middle of the attack, the owner of the winery comes out and sees this shit. And he, pulls the board off, pulls the kid out, and he's like looking at him like, what the hell? And Cayetano is just like, he's attempting to say, I didn't do this.
The horse did it.
No, in fact, he tells this whole dumbass story about a woman in black that brought them there, and then this woman did that. That woman in black did that, and I'm just here trying to save him. You caught me trying to get him out, and that's it. And yeah, the owner is not like taking any of this shit. Yeah, so the owner calls the police, and once again, Cayetano goes to jail, and he spends the night, and he gets picked up the next day. like a lot of serial killers or killers in general, well, not killers in general, but like, yeah, a lot of serial killers, you might see like the cooling off period. And it can last anywhere from days to months to years. And we saw that already in him. Like, it used to take a year or 2 years for him to attack. But this time, it only takes him 6 days. So 6 days later, he actually ends up committing one of his most heinous crimes. On September 15th, he manages to corner 22-month-old Julio Bate. And for some reason, Cayetano, he doesn't stick to his regular MO of taking the little boy to another area, but instead he just decides to torture him like right there. And he lights a cigarette and he uses it to burn the kid's eyelids.
Jesus fucking Christ.
Before he can do any more damage to this baby, the mother ends up coming out, catches them, and Cayetano just runs away. Just runs away. This is all he ever does. It's just like runs like a kid.
Yeah.
And he did. He managed to get away. A little over 2 months later, on December 6th, Cayetano would be dropped off at the jail once more by his parents. I think they've fucking had enough. And he ends up spending the next 3 years at the Colonia for Minors of Marcos Paz. So, at least there, he learns to read and write, but he also endures a ton of abuse, and he deals out a ton of abuse, and it just makes him meaner and more violent than ever.
I think that's the problem with some of this. Like, you know, you have to put the kids somewhere because obviously the parents aren't able to handle him.
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of people are going, like, why didn't the parents deal with him? Why aren't the parents dealing with him when he first started doing this?
Because
and then when you finally see them dealing with him, like, their answer is just to toss him into an adult jail.
Yeah.
And it's not working. And now, like, he just won't stop, and they have no other choice, and they send him off to...
like juvenile hall is what it seems like.
I mean, basically. So, like I said, he ends up staying there for 3 years. And then on December 23rd, 1911, his parents requested his release, so he got it.
How old is he at this point?
It's 3 years later. He went when he was like 9, so he's like 13, 14 now.
Yeah.
And, yeah. So... he's definitely not going back to school because he quit that a long time ago. So in order to help him the best they can, maybe just be normal, they get him a job at a local factory. But of course, that only lasts 3 months.
Oh, of course, yeah.
And in fact, like while he's on the job, like he's still doing really shitty things. So like now, like I say, he's 14 and he ends up taking up drinking. And, you know, his dad's already an alcoholic, so we can only assume, like, he's drinking very heavily himself. And he actually starts getting headaches, especially after drinking, that he blames on his desire to kill.
Oh, all right. Well, that's the most logical excuse, I guess.
Not like he hasn't already been trying to do it anyways.
Yeah.
So, only 24 days after his release home... on January 17th, 1912, Cayetano sets fire to a warehouse on Corrientes Street. Remember I told you he likes fires?
Yeah.
So he gets caught, and he just simply explains that, quote, I like to see the firemen work. It's really nice to see them fall into the fire.
Oh.
Yeah, he's a psycho.
Okay. Yeah.
Jesus. So, 9 days after that, he attacks a 13-year-old boy. Which is, again, off his M.O. Yeah. All this time, he's basically been attacking, like, toddlers.
Unattended babies.
So this time, he attacks a boy about his age, and he ends up brutally beating him and leaving this kid for dead. By the time the police find the beaten boy, he's half naked, and he has a string around his neck. It's like strangling him.
Jeez.
On March 7th, Cayetano attacks a 5-year-old girl, Raina Vainikoff. And this time, he sets her calico dress on fire, and she actually ends up dying from her injuries 16 days later. So I think this is the first kid that they've actually, like, seen die from his actions. Like,
directly attributing,
yeah. Yeah, like I said, he didn't mention the first baby that, like, so this is the first time I think they actually saw, and to the point, like, he didn't actually kill her, like, himself, the Burns did.
Second degree, or second, I don't know.
Yeah.
He killed her, but not directly.
And then Cayetano goes on to set 2 more buildings on fire, but they put the fires out with no fatalities. So, like, he's just, like, full on uncontrollable.
Yeah, I don't like him at all.
By September, he's working for a winery, and why anyone's hiring this little psycho is just beyond me. But on September 24th, while working at the winery, he decides to stab the owner's horse 3 times and kills it.
Oh.
But they don't even arrest him because they claim there's a lack of evidence.
There's a dead horse.
Yeah, there's literally a dead fucking horse. What other evidence do you need?
A dead horse and a little terrible person.
So, only a few days after that, the Vale train station ends up getting caught on fire, and obviously Cayetano is suspected.
Oh yeah, sounds exactly like him.
Although he's already pretty violent. Like I said, like obviously this has been ramping up quite a bit already. It's at this time where he completely becomes unhinged. And on November 8th, Cayetano gets the urge to kidnap another child.
All right.
This time, he convinces 2-year-old Robert Russo to come with him to a store. And he tells the little boy he's going to buy him candy. And it's a little kid. I mean, obviously, he's super eager, and he follows him right away. And he leads the kid a few blocks away, and he just attacks him. He ties the boy's feet together, and he's wrapping a rope around his neck, and he begins to try and hang him. And just at that moment, a local happened to walk by and catch Cayetano. So Cayetano quickly explains, like, I found him like this. I found him tied up like that, and you saw me trying to rescue him. That's what you walked up on.
Oh, that's what I walked up to. Okay.
Right? Well, the local's like, yeah, okay, fucking weird, and just ends up handing both boys over to the authorities. Like, he's not dealing with it.
Yeah,
and
it's above his pay grade, I think.
Yeah, and obviously, like, Cayetano, like, he just sticks to his story. He ends up being released, again, due to lack of merit. Like, how can you prove? But I'll tell you one thing for sure, I would never let my kid just be outside alone at this point ever again.
I don't know what is going on in Argentina when they're letting kids that are under 2 years old just hanging around outside by themselves.
It's the early 1900s. Like, kids are disposable, I guess.
Apparently.
8 days later, on November 16th, he manages to kidnap a 3-year-old girl, and he takes her to another vacant lot. And Cayetano was in the middle of beating her when, yet again, he's interrupted by a passerby. Like,
I feel like there's almost like something supernatural, just like, you know,
rescuing these children.
Yeah, like watching him and just slapping him every time he does something wrong.
This time, when he gets caught, he doesn't even explain. He just drops the baby and he just runs away like he always does. 4 days later, on November 20th, Cayetano spies a 5-year-old girl playing outside in his neighborhood. So again, true to his MO, he's going to try to persuade this little girl to follow him somewhere else.
Yeah.
But this time she says no, which is just not what he is going to accept. You know, like these people who are so violent like this, like they have a goal, they have an aim, and if anything gets in the way of that, like they do not understand nor accept it. And he just loses his temper and he hits her.
Oh, this is him losing his temper now. All right.
So a neighbor who saw this runs out of the home and tries to intervene, but again, Cayetano drops the girl and he runs away. His fear in almost being caught doesn't put him off. I mean, he just keeps getting caught over and over again, but like there's no repercussions. Nothing's happening. And so by December 12th, Cayetano would leave his house ready to get into mischief again. So Cayetano's out wandering the neighborhood, and he ends up coming across 3-year-old Gerardo Giordano, and, you know, he's playing with his friends, and they're all having a great time, and this, you know, remember, Cayetano's actually a teenager, but he's really short, and he's kind of simple, and he just has, like, the demeanor of a kid. So he just runs right up to them, and he's like, hey, can I play? And all the kids are like, yeah, because they're fucking 3 years old.
Yeah.
So they're like, yeah, you can play with us. And they start to play together. And, you know, they're having fun. And, you know, soon Cayetano's kind of like, hey, I want some candy. Does anybody want candy? Let's go get candy. And, of course, like, this gets the kids really excited.
Oh, yeah, of course it's going to. That and pizza.
So Cayetano, his sights aren't actually on Gerardo at this moment. He's actually got his sights set on a 2-year-old girl that's playing in their group. And he starts to beg her, like, come on, follow me to the shop. But something actually ends up scaring her, and she bolts for the house. And she just leaves the group. So, frustrated, Cayetano doesn't get his goal, but he's not gonna just be done. So he just turns his attention back to Gerardo and asks him, like, don't you want some candy? So the 3-year-old's like, hell yeah, I want some candy. And the two of them end up leaving, and they head to a store in Progresso 2599. We literally know the store he went to.
Yeah.
And they bought 2 cents worth of chocolate candy. So as they leave the store, Cayetano he starts breaking up the candy, and then he only just gives like a little tiny piece to Gerardo. And right away, like, Gerardo's angry. He starts to complain, like, that's not what you said. And Cayetano's just like, shh, it's hush. Like, look, what we're going to do is we're going to follow me. We're going to go over to some building, and you'll get the rest of the candy there. Like, you'll get your candy, just, like, let's go somewhere else. So, with the promise of candy, Gerardo, he agrees, and he starts to follow him. However, as they near the entrance to the building that Cayetano wants to go into, Gerardo starts to get really upset. He begins to cry. He refuses to enter the building. And Cayetano, he's just over it. And his rage breaks at the interruption in his plan yet again. And he just forces the little boy into the building. And he pushes him into the corner over by the brick oven. And he ends up knocking Gerardo on the ground, and he pins him with his right knee to his chest. And then Cayetano starts fumbling at his waist because he's trying to untie his belt, which is literally just a piece of rope that holds his pants up.
Yeah, well, I feel like he probably doesn't have a full belt because he's not trusted with one.
Or he's super poor. Either way, he takes the belt off, and he wraps it around the kid's neck 13 times. Remember, this...
Jeez.
13 times. So Gerardo pushes up, and he almost actually gets off the ground. And, Cayetano's frustrated. Like, remember, Cayetano is a freaking teenager, and this kid's 3, and he's fighting back, and he's actually struggling to hurt this kid. And so he ends up taking the rope that he was trying to use to strangle him, and he cuts off, like, a piece of it, and he bounds the boy's hands and feet before he tries to go back to strangling him. But Gerardo is a fighter, and he's not giving up. And Cayetano is just really struggling, and since he's unable to kill this kid, he just figures he needs a better tool than the rope that he's using. And he ends up leaving the boy tied up on the floor, and he walks out of the building. He's going to go find a new tool.
Yeah.
As Cayetano is wandering the streets doing just this, he actually crosses paths with Gerardo's father, who's outside desperately looking for his kid. So maybe the neighbors aren't so fucking stupid. Maybe this guy just turned his head away for a minute and his kid was gone. And he's looking for him. And Cayetano has the actual balls to speak to him.
Jesus Christ.
Gerardo's dad says, hey, have you seen my kid? And Cayetano just responds that, no, I haven't seen him. Maybe you should go to the police station and make a disappearance report. That's balls.
Yeah, I don't know. No, that's...
Yeah. So with that, the dad moves on. Cayetano resumes his search for some kind of tool and looks down, sees a nail, and thinks, good enough. He returns to the building, and Cayetano uses the nail to rupture the child's temple.
Jesus Christ.
The boy dies. His plan complete. Cayetano just grabs a piece of sheet metal, tosses it over the boy, and he runs away. Like, he did what he wanted to do.
Yeah.
Obviously, the boy's family's been looking for him, and they do find him pretty quickly, and the body's returned to the family. The family ends up holding a wake, and Cayetano actually attends it. That's just another one of those things that you see killers doing. They like to, watch whatever it is on TV or in the news, and they like to attend these funerals, and they like to insert themselves into the lives while nobody knows that it was them. I don't know if it's like an extra high for them or not, but he ends up going because he wanted to see the boy in his casket, and he wanted to see if the nail was still buried in his temple.
God damn it.
He then, after he goes up to the casket and looks, he then starts crying and he runs away. So by now the police, they're more than aware of Cayetano's violent behavior towards children, and of course they quickly come to suspect him. There's no longer any question of who's pulling this shit. It's just that we have to catch him. So they end up searching his house, and they found the remains of the rope that he used to strangle Gerardo. Like, he took it home like a prize. And not only that, there was also a clipping that he was keeping from the local newspaper about the crime. So it really that was his memento.
His trophy, yeah.
So Cayetano, he just breaks down and he confesses everything to the officers. And he's taken into custody, and instead of taking him to the jail, they just end up taking him to a mental hospital because they think he's crazy. They end up proclaiming that he has diminished mental abilities, and they said that he's just not aware of his actions. They think he's just
insane.
They think he just doesn't know any better and he doesn't know what he's doing. But he's not done. And as long as there are people who are weaker than him, that he has access to, he's going to try and kill them. And in fact, while at the mental hospital, he ends up trying to unsuccessfully kill an invalid man in his bed and another one in a wheelchair.
Jeez.
And then he tried to run away.
Of course. Where's he going to go?
Well, the psychiatric doctors now reported that Cayetano was, quote, an imbecile, and that he had perverse instincts and was extremely dangerous to those around him.
Yeah, that all seems about right.
Yeah, shocker. Just took them actually seeing it firsthand, right? So, deciding that there's literally no place for him in this hospital, Cayetano ends up getting transferred to the National Penitentiary of Los Harris Street. And he ends up he's there until 1923. And then they end up sending him to the prison at the end of the world. And if you think Cayetano's growing up and making any friends, he is not.
This doesn't surprise me one bit.
Yeah, so in 1933, just despite his fellow inmates, Cayetano goes out of his way to catch the prison cat that all the inmates are super fond of. And he ends up killing it by throwing it into the prison's firewood pile.
Why?
Just because he can. Suffice to say, this didn't go over well with his fellow inmates, who basically tried to beat him to death and almost did.
I can't blame them.
He ended up spending more than 20 days in the prison hospital before he was able to go back to his cell. So, in 1936, he goes on to make a request for his freedom. It's obviously denied.
No.
Yeah, no shit. And he spends the rest of his life being regularly beaten and raped all the way up until November 1944, when he dies from a perforated ulcer that had been hemorrhaging because of all the torture these guys are doing to him. And that I'm sure the prison guards are looking the other way for.
Oh, easily.
Yeah. And that's it. That's the life story of the murderous big-eared dwarf. But I'm pretty sure I told you could get a picture with him.
Yeah,
right?
yeah, you mentioned something about that.
And you can. So, as of today, the prison has been remade into a museum, like I first mentioned.
Yeah.
And you can actually tour its halls and its cells, and it's an actually really cool museum. Like, they've gone really far out of their way to, restore it. Mm-hmm. And throughout the museum, they have statues of guards and past inmates, kind of to tell the prison's story. And of course, Cayetano is one of them. So, what's even more disturbing is his statue is him, little old him, holding a rope belt up. And it's based off of how he showed the police how he killed Gerardo.
Oh, that's not unsettling at all as a pose.
Yep.
I mean, I don't know how you're going to pose a statue of this guy.
That's how they did it. So
but I guess that makes the most amount of sense.
Now you guys can go and get a picture with the serial killer.
Good luck, guys, on that one. Yeah, if you do that, please send your pictures to Snafud Podcast.
Yeah, we'd actually love to put them up on our website.
Yep.
Yeah, that's it. I think I told you it was the worst one so far, in my opinion.
That's a pretty terrible one. So I don't think I'm going to go there.
Yeah, I don't. Well, you're going to go to the prison at the end of the world?
No, I don't think I'm going to.
Yeah, I don't know. That was a heavy one. I think I'm sweating right now.
You kind of are. I prefer all my terrifying ghost stories and the
murderous dwarves.
Yeah, the murderous child murdering unattended 2-year-olds. I will take my ghosts that smell like rotten decay in a castle in
Me too.
scenic Ireland.
You guys ready to put us up in Ireland? Because I think we'd rather go there.
Yeah, let's go to Ireland. I'm not going to this prison at the end of the world here.
Yeah. Well, I think that's good enough for us this week. So I think we're just gonna put this to bed, and we'll just say we'll see you guys next week.
Yep. As always, if you guys have a story that you guys want to share with us, please just send it to us by email or message us on our social media, and we'll definitely make sure that we can add it to one of our stories coming up.
Yeah. Until then, bye.
Have a good night.
See ya.
Bye.